G'day guys, Tony Angus here. Moving on to the next section of our model of escalation. If you're just joining us now for this one, we're already up to here. I want you to go back, check out the post where we start down here. Okay, so look at the disagreement phase, intro to model of escalation. We've gone a long way ahead and it'll be difficult to pick up the pieces if you're just starting with us now. Alright, so for those of you who have, just a quick recap. Remember, the first thing that escalation starts with is some sort of disagreement. Could be minor, such as a series of sort of little events that annoy us and build. Or it could be one catastrophic event. Giving people understanding and some sort of control will help to minimize their escalation, help to modify their own behaviors, help to build on their ability to cope. All right, so that's what we're trying to do. The springboard, the fire cracker that sets off escalation is normally one of these three things, because people can disagree and still not escalate. We looked at loss and how loss is the limbic system, causes the blood flow to go into the subconscious emotional brain and to put us in a fight or flight response. And the fight or flight response we're calling the gorilla, because this is the mammal or mammalian brain, the orange part there called the limbic system. So they're in their mammal brain, so we're calling the gorilla. Just for ease of reference, if you see people huffing and puffing and stomping around, they're all but beating their chest, you can say to yourself, well, that person's in gorilla mode. It must be a lost situation. And that's the way it works. We also wrote down a number of verbal strategies to use when dealing with a gorilla. And I suggested to you that communicating is only one of the options available to you in this little model. And we'll expand on those options later on. All right. So what happens if we get this wrong? Ask yourself, anytime that somebody is aggressive, if you were to step in and get your response wrong and fire them up even further, what's likely to happen? Now, most of you will say, well, they become physical. Well, that's actually up here. So physical responses typically would be up there, and there's something just falling in between the two. Excuse my throat. So what it is a posturing stage. So posturing is a more threatening state, a more threatening position. And here's why. Let's say, for example, that you operate a public transport organisation, or that you're an employee of a public transport organisation, and your train is late. And I'm upset because I've got somewhere to be and it's important to me. So I'm going through a loss. So I'm a gorilla at the moment. So what I require then from you, if you're going to communicate with me, is supportive language. But if you instead step in and say something like, listen mate, calm down, we're only 20 minutes out. That language is not supportive. So it makes you appear as if you are my opponent in my fight or flight. If I'm in fight mode and you oppose me, you are my opponent. And so what happens is I might move from being angry at the organisation to angry at you. And so this is very much a narrowing of the focus. So I become much more threatening personally to you. So this is where they would step into your space and they talk to you. What did you say to me? Did you tell me to calm down? How dare you? Don't you talk to me like that. So this is a stage where we want you to avoid. This is where we don't want you to end up. Up to this point, to a degree, it's been okay up to that point. But from there on, we don't want that. We don't want anybody posturing to you and becoming personally threatening, and we certainly don't want people being physical. When they're physical, it might be physical with things, so they might sweep stuff off your desk, they might push something over, they might punch a hole in a wall, and they might be physical with you. So we don't know what they're going to be physical with. It's just you start to get the sense that they're being angry and they're tipping things, sweeping things, pushing things. So they've gone over that tipping point. All right, so look for these things, the posturing and physical, and avoid that stage. Now, back over here to a tactical options model, there are things in addition to communication now that become really super important. One of the things I want you to do at the posturing stage is have a really good understanding of your environment. A really good understanding of your environment. What is your environment composed of, comprised of? And how do you manage that environment for safety? And so we're going to introduce that here. And this is, this will lead us on to a discussion of a more environmental awareness and risk assessment, but this is a massive part of it. And so the type of environmental awareness you need to know right now, we use the acronym ROSE. And if they're posturing up, you should have an understanding of it all the time, but particularly if they're posturing up to you, you need to know that now. So, ROSE, risks. And when we say risks, we've obviously got the risk of the gorilla in front of you, who is aggressive and starting to be physical with things as well. Right now, they are your biggest risk, and so keep your eye on them. But there are also other hazards around you, tripping hazards. If there's a lifted piece of carpet, or there's some, an extension cord, or a slippery surface, any of those things. If there's something sharp, if there's something hanging down, you turn away from the gorilla only to walk your face into a branch, for example. So be aware of the risks that are around you at any time. If you're on a train station platform dealing with somebody, then the pit itself, where the train drives, that's a risk. You might fall in there. So different level surfaces, any of those things are risks. Be very conscious of the risks around you. Obstacles. An obstacle is obviously anything that you can trip over in your path, but things that you can move. So typically in the environment, there'll be chairs and rubbish bins and potted plants and stools and bags, and, in a hospital environment, it might be IV poles or wheelchairs or beds, gurneys, any of those things, obstacles in your path that you need to navigate around in order to be able to exit effectively. Your exits, it's a good idea to have an understanding of how the exit functions. So to know whether it's a door knob or a handle, for example, whether it opens in or opens out. If it opens out, then you can kind of typically hit that door and keep going. If it opens in, you've got to pause, open the door enough for you to get through, then exit. If it opens out, you just hit it and go. A handle typically is easier than a doorknob. Gross motor versus a bit more fine. So understanding where your exits lead to. Should I go out that door or should I go out that door? And why? Why would I choose that one over that one? Who's out there? Who's out here? Understanding how your exits function. Which one locks? Do they lock from the inside, the outside? Do you need a swipe key? Can you imagine you choose an exit and you've got to run up there, you swipe, you've got to put a key in and punch a code and get your eyeball scanned. Too late, the guy's on you by now. So go to the door that doesn't need anything and can lock from the other side. Do that. So understanding your exits is important. And then also understanding what can support you along the way. So anything around that can help you, anything or anyone. Who have you got near you, by you, colleagues, friends, police, security, etc. Who is around you that can help? But also, what have you got at your disposal? You know, if you've got somebody angry and they're coming towards you, if you've got a whiteboard marker and you need to throw it at them just to get them to flinch and give you a moment to leave, it's a support. If somebody pulls a knife and you can pick up a laptop bag or a handbag or something and use that to protect yourself, that's a support. If there's a glass of water there and you need to splash it in their face to distract them for that few seconds that it will buy you to get out your exit, then that becomes a support. So really now it's about what can hurt you, what can trip you, what can help you to get out of here. And where do you go? Okay? So having that understanding of your environment is going to help you when it comes to managing somebody who wants to get in your space and become physically threatening. Righto? Obviously, if they do become physically threatening, it's pretty important right now that you know how to defend yourself. And I'm going to run through a series of posts. There's a whole series coming on how to defend yourself, what we should do, what we should avoid doing. It's going to be quite practical, no airy-fairy street stuff. I'm not going to pretend, for example, that you should do a jump, spinning, flying back kick for a guy with a knife, okay? Throw something, get out of there. So there are going to be practical solutions, but I'm going to show you how to move. I'm going to show you how to defend yourself, what to do, and typical body reactions, okay? I'm going to keep it fairly practical. For now, understanding that that's a problem at least gives you the idea that having to defend yourself becomes the option over here. So if we have to now look at the option we would use, and it wouldn't be communication, we're going to use a force option. So in here, instead of communicating, we've chosen to use some physical force to deal with that threat. Okay, so that's the option. And there are other options we'll discuss. For now, I'm going to leave that with you. Here's your escalation, and it only gets worse from there. So if this was to continue, if we were to continue this graph up in here, you would then get them, using weapons and causing harm, injury, etc. We don't need to worry about that. If it's got to that stage, it's already trouble. So we'll talk about that stuff later. But here's your model of escalation. We've focused on the gorilla so far. Next time I see you, I'm going to be talking about number 2 here, and we'll work through the same process. How does it unfold? What's likely to happen at this stage? And how do we deal with it? Guys, thanks very much again for having me in your homes and your workplaces. I really enjoy posting these things, and I hope they're helping. If they are, make sure you hit like and share. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. You have to sign in with YouTube to do that, but that's easy, quick and easy. If there's anything you'd like me to discuss, just let me know. But stick with me over the journey. We've got lots to talk about. This is a massive topic. So with your permission, I'll see you quite a few times to come. Alright guys, be safe, be good, and I look forward to seeing you very soon where we're going to move on